Welcome to ENAGO's webinar in collaboration with Researcher, which will focus on discussing citation analysis, popular citation databases, and the various metrics that are widely used to assess research impact. Today we have with us our expert speakers, Dr. Despina Sanoudou and Dr. Jonathan Cremers. Dr. Sanoudou holds a PhD degree in molecular cytogenetics from the University of Cambridge and currently works as an associate professor at the Medical School of the University of Athens. Dr. Sanoudou is a renowned medical researcher and a published author with more than 88 publications, over 4,400 citations, and 20 grants to her credit. She has also been associated with Harvard Medical School as a postdoctoral fellow and an instructor. In today's session, she will explain in detail the standard structure of a research article and how to write each section comprehensively. Dr. Cremers holds a PhD in chemistry from the University of Oxford. He is currently working as the Senior Product Manager at Researcher, an app designed by academics for academics. With over 16,000 journals across 10 research areas, Researcher helps research scholars build personalized feeds to keep them up to date with academic literature. We extend a warm welcome to both our speakers and thank them for joining us today. Before I hand over the mic to Dr. Sanoudou, I'd like to give you all a brief introduction about ENAGO. We are the world's leading author services provider, and our author-first, quality-first approach ensures that our authors receive only the best quality output and excellent user experience at all times. This unrelenting focus on authors' needs means that we never compromise on our quality systems and processes at any cost. All our services are designed keeping in mind the author's needs. ENAGO Academy is our author training platform that educates authors through several resources, including webinars as well as live workshop sessions. We also have an e-learning platform for researchers called ENAGO Learn, along with a live one-on-one consultation platform called ENAGO Consult. ENAGO offers world-class services to researchers at different stages of their research career, such as two-editor system English language editing service, academic and non-academic translation service, manuscript preparation service, and publication support service. The ENAGO promise guarantees that a manuscript edited by us will never be rejected on the basis of poor language. On a rare occasion, if rejection occurs, we will take full responsibility for re-editing the paper for resubmission at no additional cost. ENAGO's comprehensive after-sales services will support you at every step of the way until your manuscript is published. They are designed to take care of every need from the time you receive our main services until you are published. ENAGO's research communication services are designed to help you effectively present your research data. In case you are interested in any of these services, please feel free to email to us at academy@enago.com. Now, without any further delay, I hand over the mic to Dr. Sanoudou to begin this webinar.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. During the course of this presentation, I would like to go through some key points as shown on this slide: the introduction to citation analysis, talk about popular citation databases and tools, talk about subject-specific databases and tools, go over a short introduction to research metrics, and then types of scholarly metrics. So what are citations? Something that I assume most of you are familiar with, but just to set the basis, citation is the formal reference to the source of information, published or unpublished. It indicates that the citing author has referred to a part of or full information in the cited literature while conducting their research, And the key components of a citation include the author name, the date, the title of the work, and publication details such as the journal, volume, issue, etc. There are two components to every citation: the in-text citation, the in-text component, which may be the last name with a date or a number in the text right after the section that has been cited from another piece of work, and the end of text bibliographic reference list, where one finds the full details for every single citation that has been used in this piece of work, in this manuscript, etc. So the basic elements would appear as you can see on your screen now: the author's title of this work, the name of the journal, and then the publication year, volume, and page numbers. This is a typical view that I assume all of you have seen during the course of your studies and work. But why are citations so important? I would dare say that citations are at the very core of a researcher's life and of a researcher's career. First of all, citations are critical for upholding intellectual honesty and avoiding plagiarism. It's the way to give credit, to attribute prior work to the correct sources, to help readers locate the source of information, if they so wish, to be able to find more details for the cited work, to be able to independently assess the referenced material, and also to facilitate the replication and validation of the published work if this is needed, as it may integrate pieces of data or information or conclusions, etc., from previously published or unpublished work. What is citation analysis? The citation analysis is a way to analyze the impact, influence, relative importance, and presumed quality of the publications by enumerating the number of times a publication has been referred to, i.e., it has been cited by others or in others' work. In simple terms, it is a quantitative analysis to measure the impact of a publication, an author, a journal, an academic institute, the research output of a country, etc. But why is citation analysis so important?
Muted.
Is it really at the heart of
Unmuted.
the world? There are several reasons for that, and over the next 3 slides, including this one, I would like to take you through the key points why I consider it to be such a crucial component of our work and work life. So for researchers at an individual level, citation analysis is sometimes a way of performing your research. It's definitely a way of presenting and publishing your research work. You absolutely need to include citations to demonstrate where your work was based, what was the background, how do you advance the field beyond that. Sometimes you need to use data from other sources to compare to or to perform your analysis, such as in meta-analysis, etc. The citations and the citation analysis is a way to demonstrate progress, for example, of your grant, to show the impact of your work to the research field. It's also a way of receiving credit as a scientist for what you have done, the citations and the citation analysis that relates to you personally and to your publications. It has developed to be an important tool for being promoted or being employed. The citation analysis of our work is always requested and included in our CVs, in our applications for positions, for promotions, etc. And that's both in the academic sector, but sometimes in the commercial sector as well. The citation analysis is also used to attract research funding. So it's information that you often include in a grant application, and information that is taken very seriously into consideration by many funding bodies when deciding which researchers are more likely to implement the proposed work in a more successful way. Beyond the individuals, though, citation analysis is very important for journals, scientific journals, research journals themselves. It's a way to ensure the accuracy of the presented work because the citations of all material referred to are in the text. It's a way to avoid plagiarism and duplicate or multiple publication of the same material, the same data or parts thereof. It's also a way to assess a journal's performance over time. It's one of the means that are used to rank different journals in every discipline at a global level, and a very important measure. It's also a way to attract submissions because journals where their metrics are higher will attract more submissions by more scientists. And then there's one more aspect, and this would have to go beyond the individual and beyond the different journals, and that would relate to the impact of citation analysis and its importance for organizations, research organizations, funding organizations for scientific disciplines, or even countries. And what do I mean by that? It's a quantitative and qualitative measure of an academic organization's faculty performance. How do the researchers, the scientists, the faculty in an organization perform? And how do they compare between them, between departments, between disciplines, between other organizations in the same country or across countries? It's one of the measures taken in metrics, taken into consideration when ranking academic organizations worldwide, and efforts are made consistently to improve those metrics. It's a way to assess the impact of the funded work from a funding organization or a funding body. These organizations do need to have a means to assess how the funds they provided were used and what impact they have on the community. So citation analysis can play a very important role towards this direction. If we look at an even bigger level, citation analysis is being used to assess the performance of a country's research community. How is this country performing as a whole, the research community as a whole, in the different scientific disciplines? What's the output in terms of publications, in terms of citations, in terms of publications to different impact factor journals, etc. And then citation analysis is also being used to assess the progress in different research fields at a global level. So which new fields are emerging, which fields are progressing faster, which fields are progressing slower, which fields are attracting more attention, etc. These are just some examples of why citation analysis is so important and why I consider this talk to be a great initiative from ENAGO and researcher. So let's look at popular citation databases and tools that are being used today. Three major citation databases would have to be the Web of Science, Scopus, and Google Scholar. You've probably all heard of them. They are available by different organizations. They have different advantages and different limitations. But let's look at each one of them and let's look at a few of their key features. Web of Science is a multidisciplinary database, has a broad coverage of articles from different disciplines, ranging from health and natural sciences to humanities, social sciences, and more. Some of its advantages, it provides to the users complex search options and provides the most well-known and frequently used indicators for citation analysis. Some of the limitations, it moderately covers humanities and social sciences, and it mainly uses journals and articles that are in the English language. Some of its features, it provides citation mapping, alerts and RF speed, citation reports, author finder, cited reference search, journal citation reports, and some bibliometric indicators related include the total number of citations, impact factor, immediacy index, article impact, eigenfactor, citation median, and age index. Web of Science, as well as Scopus, are paid databases, so they usually require a fee for access of the broad range of their information. So Scopus, another major database, is a multidisciplinary one, has comprehensive coverage of articles, again including health, natural sciences, technology, humanities, social sciences, and more. It has a high, better, I would say, coverage of open access journals with approximately 16,500 included under Scopus, good coverage of social sciences and humanities, and a user-friendly search interface with downloadable reference list. Some of the limitations, you occasionally find typographical errors, especially related to authors with the same name, and publications, again, are mainly from English language journals. Some of its features include author affiliation and identifier, citation tracker, alert and RSS feeds, cited reference search, and Scopus Journal Analyzer. In terms of bibliometric indicators, you have total number of citations, the SIMAGO journal rank, the source normalized impact per paper, and H-index. Just a comment, as we're starting to talk about bibliometric indicators. Some of these terms may be new to you, or you may not fully remember what the definitions are, but we will go through them one by one in the slides to come and explain what they are, what they do, and how they are helpful. So the third database that I'd like to talk about, as it does play an important role, is Google Scholar. It's freely available, retrieves data from scientific sources available on the web that follow specific inclusion criteria as determined on their website. You can find the full details. It also includes selected conference articles in engineering and computer science. As I mentioned, it's freely available and it retrieves information irrespective of language or country, and it is another user-friendly tool. However, it does not provide details on its sources. It has several non-peer-reviewed items, has fewer filter options and search features, and it's more difficult to export citations. Some of its features, search and retrieval of cited articles. It provides the Google Scholar metrics, including H-index, H-core, and H-median, as well as the H5 index, H5 core, and H5 median, some of which we will be talking about later on. Just to help out in appreciating those terms, the H5 here refers to the 5-year time period that has passed. And we will talk more about the H-index, which is very widely used later on. Bibliometric indications included total number of citations, the publish or perish program, total number of papers and citations, the H-index and the average annual increase of the individual H-index, as well as H-weighted citation rates. Beyond all these three major databases, there are many others that are subject-specific. And I'd like to give you some examples without as many details, but so that you know, or at least have a better feel for what's out there. And of course, you're welcome to check them out after the end of this presentation. So some examples from the health science sector. We have MBase, which is a biomedical and pharmacological database, MCare for nursing and allied health data, PubMed, very widely used. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it. ProQuest, Neurobyte, and PsycInfo. Again, these are just some examples from health science related databases. If I was to talk a little bit more about some of them, I would say about MBase. It's produced by Elsevier, the publisher. It's a highly versatile, multi-purpose and up-to-date biomedical research database, mostly aimed at facilitating drug development and related research. It contains over 30 million records, including articles from more than 8,500 journals. The bibliographical records come with citations, abstracts, and indexing derived from biomedical articles in peer-reviewed journals. The ProQuest database is multidisciplinary. It's the largest collection of multiple full-text databases. Again, multidisciplinary, has over 175 subjects, and it includes newspapers, magazines, dissertations, scholarly journals, as well as other publications. The citations are available in almost all popular types. Now, there are examples of databases from other different disciplines beyond health sciences. CNOW would be very close to health sciences, again, nursing and allied health. But then we have CiteSeer for computer and information science, MathSciNet for mathematics, SSRN for social sciences, and SciFinder for chemistry. If I was to give you just a little bit more information for some of them, CNOW has more than 7.5 million records, approximately 5,300 index journals. Some of its key features include journals with searchable cited references, care sheets, and quick lessons focusing on nursing practice. And then MathSciNet for mathematics, and of course, those of you who are active in this field, is a searchable electronic bibliographic database consisting of citations, abstracts, and reviews related to mathematical sciences. Information from more than 3.5 million items from over 1,800 journals. And it has 2.3 million direct links to these articles, 90,000 reviews authored by experts published every year. It's a valuable tool. SciFinder for chemistry, large comprehensive database developed by Chemical Abstract Service, provides information about chemical structures, substructures, and reactions from more than 52 million references, including journals, books, and technical reports. It's an easy-to-use searchable database and has information for more than 126 million single and multi-step reactions and experimental procedures. So you can see how when we go into subject-specific databases beyond the actual articles and the published papers or the abstract, you start having more specialized tools. In the multidisciplinary databases, we also had citation analysis tools incorporated in them, whereas in the subject-specific tools, we start having tools and information that is more specialized and specific to each one of these disciplines. But now let's move on to have a discussion on, at least an introduction, on research metrics. We already mentioned several terms in the previous slides that I would like to discuss in more detail. So here are some fields in research metrics that you may be familiar with. You may have heard of the terms bibliometrics, scientometrics, informetrics, or altmetrics. Or maybe you haven't. These are bigger umbrellas, names of entire fields that encompass many of the components included in citation analysis. And they are the broader fields that relate to the analysis of citations and different types of metrics relating to science for all the different purposes we discussed earlier on. So for bibliometrics, there have been many different definitions over time. They're all pretty similar, but you'll find definitions such as the application of mathematics and statistical methods to books and other media of communication, quantitative analysis of the bibliographic features of a body of literature, statistical or quantitative description of a literature, or the more recent one, the development and application of mathematical models and techniques to all aspects of communication. So bibliometrics is really a broad field. Among the subfields it encompasses is scientometrics. Again, you'll find that there are different definitions for this, but I'd say two of the probably most prevalent would be the field of inquiry given over to the quantitative analysis of science and scientific field, and the field of study which concerns itself with measuring and analyzing scientific literature. The latter one was what you will find today in Wikipedia as well. And then there's the term informetrics, which is the study of quantitative aspects of information. It includes production, dissemination, and use of all forms of information, regardless of its form or origin. Infometrics encompasses bibliometrics, scientometrics, and goes on to include webometrics and cybermetrics. So you can see it's a whole science behind what most of us in our specialized research life will call citation analysis. At this point, there are journals that are devoted to these different fields, and some examples include the Scientometrics Journal, the Journal of Infometrics, or Frontiers in Research Metrics and Analytics. And then there's the term altmetrics, a relatively new term you may have not heard of to this point. So altmetrics is an alternative to the traditional citation metrics, and it calculates a score based on the number of times a research output has been shared or downloaded from social media or has been mentioned in news and blogs. Now, how does one get this score? It can be retrieved from the altmetric bookmarklet, which is free to download if you go to their website page, and allows to view the altmetric data for any published research item as long as it has a DOI. Now, one of the visually very pleasing and easily informative tool in the altmetric booklet is the altmetric attention score and donut. So this colorful visualization symbol, as you can see on your right-hand side here, uses different slices of the donut to indicate different types of citations, different sources of citations, and based on the width of each one of these slices, you have a representation of the citations that the specific piece of work has received from these different sources. So for example, here the score would be 1869, and each different color would represent references, citations from each one of these different items on the list you can see here. So if, for example, your article has only received tweets, then it will only have a blue color. If it's only been mentioned in blogs, then it will all be yellow, and the score will depend on that accordingly. Now let's look at types of different scholarly metrics. This could be divided in 3 different major categories, and it would be the journal level metrics that are used to determine the impact of scholarly journals on the scientific community, article level metrics that relate to the usage, impact, and reach of the different published articles, as well as author level metrics, which have to do with the impact of an individual author's publications. Let's start with the journal level metrics. These are used to determine the impact of the journal based on the citations received by its published articles. So different metrics that are being used is the site score, journal impact factor, eigenfactor and article influence, Scimago journal rank, source normalized impact factor. I would like to briefly take you through each one of those because they are widely used, they are important, and you're likely to come across them in your research career. So what is the site score? Site score computes the citations from all documents in 1 year to all documents published in the previous 3 years. The source is based on Scopus, and it scans through 330 different disciplines comprising over 25,000 serial titles from books, conference proceedings, peer-reviewed journals, etc. So for example, the site score for 2020 would be, for a journal, would be the total number of citations received in 2020 divided by the total number of documents that were published in 2017, 18, and 19. The journal impact factor measures the relative importance of the journal within a specific field or discipline, and it is defined as the number of citations received by articles in the journals in the last 2 years divided by the number of articles published by that journal in the same previous 2 years. So if we were to present this as a formula, it would be A divided by B, where A and B would be, as I just mentioned, these two different aspects. Now, let's look at an example of how you would calculate the journal impact factor if you wanted to do it yourself, although there are such lists available, so you can find the journal impact factors available online. But if you wanted to calculate it yourself, and you wanted, say, to do it for the year 2018, you would determine how many citations were received in the year 2019 for all items published in 17 and 16 respectively. Then one would need to determine how many items were published in the year 17 and 16 respectively. And as you can see at the bottom in the yellow box, you would divide these two numbers and get the actual impact factor. So for this hypothetical example, the impact factor for 2018 would be 1.84. If we were to compare site score versus journal impact factor, the two main differences would be that site scores based on 3 years, documents from 3 years, and citations are retrieved from Scopus, whereas the journal impact factor is based on citable documents from 2 years, and the citations are retrieved from Web of Science. Now, the eigenfactor and the article influence. Eigenfactor is a mathematical indicator of overall contribution of the journal to scientific literature. It's based on average citations and retrieves data from Web of Science. It gives higher weightage to citations from high-impact journals, and this is an important difference to the metrics that we mentioned just previously. Now, the article influence is calculated by dividing the eigenfactor score of the journal by the number of articles published. So it determines the average impact of an article, taking into account a 5-year period after the article was published. Important to note that both eigenfactor and article influence exclude all self-citations. Another metric that you will find is Imago journal rank. This is based on the principle that not all citations were created equal. And what do they mean by that? It takes into consideration the following. It's based on Google's PageRank algorithm and gives weightage to citations from high-impact journals. Citation value greater than 1 or less than 1 is assigned based on rank of the citing journal. So it's calculated on the basis of the average number of weighted citations in a year to that published in the last 3 years. Information is retrieved from Scopus and produces both journal and country-specific indicators. Some of the key analysis indicators it includes is H-index, total sites, citable and non-citable documents, and it takes into consideration international collaboration. So it represents the articles that have been produced by researchers from different countries. I will talk to you more about the H-index in the slides to come. Another metric would be the source normalized impact factor, SNP. The score is based on field normalized assessment of journal impact, and it's the ratio of a source's average citation count and citation potential. SNP has the advantage that it rectifies differences in citation practices across scientific fields and allows for a more accurate interfield comparison of citation impact. The data is retrieved from Scopus, and it also has another dimension to it in that it evaluates immediacy. By that, they mean how quickly a paper is likely to have an impact in a specific field. Now let's look at article level metrics. This is a set of measures that provide information about reach and impact of an individual article. Article level metrics incorporate data from traditional as well as non-traditional sources, and 3 main examples would be Scopus, PlanX, and Web of Science. Let's look a specific example to make this easier. If we had an article such as the one indicated in your slide here, which comes from the journal called Bulletin of the American Meteorological Society. You have the information, the title, the authors, the publication information. So if we use this as an example and we go to the Web of Science, you can retrieve the citation network metrics. You can use the citation network metrics window and retrieve information on the number of citations this specific article has retrieved, as well as indications as to whether it's a highly cited article. You can see a sign as highly cited paper, as in your figure on your left-hand side. And this is a sign if a publication is in the top 1% of similar articles in terms of subject area and age. And you may also get another sign if this is considered to be a hot paper, which would be that it has immediate high impact post-publication. If you go into Scopus and you look for the specific article that we're using as an example, you would find 5,986 citations. Allow me to go back for a second. Remember this number. With Scopus, it retrieves 5,986 citations, but in Web of Science, it's 5,814. Keep in mind this number is different, and we'll come back to that to discuss why this is. So Scopus again will give you the number of citations. It will give you the field-weighted citation impact, and it will also give you a window to plan metrics. Now, what is plan metrics? Plan metrics uses a non-citation based data. It's a non-citation based indicator of article level impact. So if you look into the specific information that can be retrieved and provided to you through plan metrics, this would have to do with a usage, and that would be views, clicks, downloads, library holdings for the specific article, captures in the form of bookmarks, reference manager, saves, and favorites, mentions in news, blog posts, reviews, comments, Wikipedia, social media, so how many likes, shares, and tweets it had, as well as citations in citation indexes or clinical citations. So it's a whole new range of different parameters that can be considered, viewed, estimated for any published piece of work, and then they can be used accordingly for all the purposes that we discussed in the introduction, such as promotion of an individual's or an institution's work or a journal's work. Now, coming back to this seeming discrepancy between the number of citations retrieved by Web of Science and Scopus, why were they different? Was there a mistake? No, there was no mistake. The numbers can differ sometimes. Why does this happen? There's a number of reasons for that, and it has to do with how each one of these sources calculates the citations. So keep in mind that both produce a curated collection of research outputs, but have biases in their selection criteria. There are differences in the time period they cover and in the criteria as well. So for example, the coverage of Web of Science dates back to 1945 for Science Citation Index, 1956 for Social Science Citation Index, and 1975 for Arts and Humanities Citation Index, whereas Scopus dates back to 1966. So definitely the time period is one parameter. However, the selection criteria is another important parameter. In any case, do not be alarmed by this difference. It is established, it is known, it is acceptable, and it's usually only minor. Now let's move on to author level metrics. It determines the impact of an author on a holistic level based on total citation received by the articles that he or she has published. And here we have the H index, author level indices such as G and I10, field weighted citation index, and category normalized citation index. These are some of the main metrics that are being used, and I'd like to tell you just a few more, give you a few more pieces of information for each one of them. So H index is something that is widely used. You've most likely heard The full name would be Hirsch Index Citation Metrics, and it quantifies the bibliometric impact of individual authors. In a way, it evaluates productivity as well as impact of a scientist. The productivity is evaluated in terms of number of publications, and the impact is determined by citation count. So if we were to give a definition, or how is the H index calculated, it would be the number of articles, H, that have been cited at least H number of times. So if you look at the graph on your right-hand side, number of citations of a specific individual and journal articles that this individual has published, he has 6 publications with over 6 citations in each one of them. So the H index for that researcher would be 6. The H index, although developed established over the more recent years, it has become very popular and it's very widely used at this point. The reason why that is considered to be a more fair publication-based approach to assessing and comparing researchers' productivity and impact. So if we were to look at an example, if we were to compare 2 different scientists, 2 researchers, Mr. A and Mr. B, if Mr. A was, for example, an early career scientist and he had 4 highly cited papers, so 4 papers that had received over 4 publications each, and then there was Mr. B, a mid-career scientist who had 12 papers without many citations, but had at least 4 papers with over 4 citations each, then they would both end up with the same H index, and that would be 4, despite the fact that one would have more publications than the other. So it's a different way to view the performance of a scientist. There are, of course, limitations to this index, as with any index. For the specific one, for H index, the limitations would include that it does vary based on the discipline of research. The H values are often higher for popular and high-interest subject areas. Authors who publish in English have better citation indices. And authors who are part of a network and publish together as well tend to have higher H indices. Then there's the I-10 index, which indicates the number of publications of a scientist with a minimum of 10 citations. So for example, if the I-10 index is 10, the researcher has 10 articles which have received a minimum of 10 citations each. Now, if we were to compare H index versus I index, I prepared this example from you, comparing Albert Einstein's performance as assessed by Google Scholar and Charles Darwin. And you'll see here that although they have very similar H indexes, 108 for Einstein and 106 for Darwin, their I in 10 index is quite different. Does this make one more important than the other? Of course not. It's just different ways to view, to assess the performance of a scientist. Then there's the G index. This is the unique largest number of articles, G, that have received at least G to the power of 2 citations. So an example would be if someone's G index is 40, it means that this researcher has published a minimum of 40 articles, which combined have received at least 1,600 citations. Then there's the field-weighted citation index. This can be accessed from SciVal, from Elsevier, and determines the ratio of citations relative to the expected number derived from the global average. The global average, in turn, is calculated based on citations received by similar or comparable publications indexed in Scopus. So here, if an author has an FWCI of 1, it means that he or she has received the expected global average number of citations. If it's greater than 1, then it means they have received more citations than expected, and if it's less than 1, less than expected. So for example, the green and red box on your right-hand side, if author A has a score of 1.25, then they have received 25 times more citations than the average work, whereas a score of 0.6 would mean 40% less citations than the average. And then there's the CNCI, the Category Normalized Citation Index, which can be accessed from inside from Clarivate Analytics. The way this is calculated, I'm sorry, this blue line is lower than it should be. It's the actual count of citing articles divided by the expected citation rate for similar works. So again here, if the CNCI is 1, the author has performed at part with global average. If it's greater than 1, then the author has exceeded the expected global average. Lower than 1, the author has not met the expected global average. This is another valuable and unbiased indicator of impact, irrespective of career stage, age, specific subject, etc. So you can see how each one of those metrics has different advantages and disadvantages and takes into consideration slightly different parameters. After all this information that we have gone through, all the different definitions, equations, tools, if I was to summarize everything and finish with 2 key points, this would be that every database, metric, or tool uses different parameters, evaluation criteria, and weightage, as well as different data sources, context of use, and calculation methods. They're all valuable for citation analysis. However, careful selection is required when it comes to performing citation analysis, and careful application of the findings is required. The selection of the analysis tools should depend on the question being asked. What are you trying to assess every single time? And when it comes to appreciating numbers that you come across, metrics, results that you come across in the web, in the course of your work, it is important to take into consideration what does each of these numbers mean, which metric does it follow, how did it emerge, and how should it be interpreted by you in the context of the question that you're trying to answer. Some of these metrics are more established than others for specific purposes. So for example, the age index is a must in a CV for many different employers in many different countries, not everywhere. Other locations require other types of information from different metrics. And this is something that is dynamic. It changes over time as new metrics evolve and present with more or different advantages than what we have available at any given point in time. 2 tips that I'd like to leave you with would be try to use both qualitative and quantitative inputs for decisions. Use multiple complementary metrics for final evaluation of research impact and productivity. At any of the different levels, be it individual, article, journal, whichever level you may be involved in assessing. And with that, I'd like to thank you for your attention and pass the microphone to Jonathan. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you are. I hope that everybody can see my screen, and if that's not the case, I'll be nudged by somebody. And thank you, Despina, for the great talk. It was really nice to get an overview of all the tools out there, and actually to be reminded what all of these different metrics do and where they come from. I think I've heard of most of them, but I've never been so clearly told what the differences are, so it was great to hear. Today, I'll be giving you a short presentation, about 10 minutes, about researcher, what we do as a company, what we're trying to do for academics. And towards the end, I'll move a little bit towards what we can do to help you manage your citations as well. Now, researcher is a discovery platform. So we're slightly different than the tools Despina just showed us, which are more global databases that have like this big historic database of all the academic literature out there. What researcher is trying to do is help you discover all the new content that's being published. We have indexed about 16,000 journals, and we make sure that every time a new paper is published within any of these journals, we know about them and we place them in our database so that you, if you're interested in a specific journal, will get these papers into your feeds. We launched the company in 2017. I joined myself about 6 months later. I was still in academia when they started the company. I joined in early 2018. And since that time, we've actually grown to 1.6 million. Actually, a couple of days ago, we were at 1.7 million users who are making about 15 million content impressions every month. And what that means is that these people that are using our app are actually looking at 15 million papers on our app on average in a month. Now, researchers set out to solve a problem. And that problem is that there is simply too much content out there. Right? There is about 40,000 journals. These journals are publishing about 20 million research articles every year. And you as an academic, you as a researcher, have to try to stay up to date with everything that's going on and try not to miss anything. And different people will have set up different tools to try and stay up to date, right? So you might have set up a couple of RSS feeds, you might have some email alerts, you might have some notifications from some malware tools. I used to go to journals web page and I used to go to academics web pages just to try and stay up to date with what was relevant. But researchers actually trying to give you all of that information in one app, either on the mobile app, so on Android or iOS, or on a website as well. And the nice thing here as well is if you log in with the same account on any of the different devices, your data will be shared across, synced across both of your devices. So whatever you're doing on your phone is synced with whatever you're doing on the website. Now, we allow users to choose between 16,000 journals of whatever they find interesting to follow, and we will create a sort of social media style feed in which every time a new paper comes out, it will be pushed to the top of your feed, and you can decide to read this, you can share it, you can bookmark it and read it later, or you can just ignore it altogether. It's not interesting to you. We try to be comprehensive across all sciences, so we have 10 research areas covered at the moment, ranging from all the life sciences to the earth sciences to psychology. I think we might be slightly stronger on the life sciences, but we try to cover everything. And of course, besides just following individual journals, you might actually also be interested in following some more fine-pointed filters, for example, where you're interested in a specific keyword or a specific author, which I will tell you a little bit more about in the next slide. While our feeds are chronological, because we just want you to be sure that you see everything that's out there and you tell us what you like and what you don't like, we do have some machine learning in the background for example, trending pages, where we can tell you what your community is reading, where we can tell you what other people in your field are reading and what might be interesting to you as well. Of course, you can share, right? You can share papers within the app if your friends are on Researcher, or you can just share externally via all your apps, WhatsApp, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you like. But I think that one of the most important points is that researchers trying to fit in seamlessly in your workflow, right? We want to build a tool that fits within your everyday life as a researcher. And to make sure that we do that, we try to integrate all different sources, such as reference managers, which means that if you were to bookmark a paper on the app that you find interesting, we'll make sure that gets sent straight over to your reference manager so you can read it later. But we've also integrated with Easy Proxy, that if you have institutional access to get full text access, we can give that to you on the app. We've integrated with ORCID and other platforms like that. Now, to give you a little bit more information about the feeds, is that I talked about the main feed, the home feed, which is basically built up from all the journals that you find interesting. So you can just subscribe to all of these journals, and every time they publish something, it will go into your feed. But like I said, you might actually be interested in staying up to date with a broader subject or a topic, for example. So you can also create topic feeds. If you say, you know what, I'm interested in organic chemistry, then we will make sure that we will look through all these 16,000 journals. We'll look at all the papers that come out. And anytime something published about organic chemistry comes up, we'll push that into a filtered feed for you. You can also make other personalized feeds, for example, with keywords and authors. A keyword feed will literally just look for that specific keyword in the title and abstract of a paper. And the author feeds is, of course, looking for a specific author who has written the paper. Now you can make these feeds as complex as you want. You can use all these Boolean operators such as and or not for real fine-tuning of your feeds. You can use notifications if you want, so we can actually tell you when something new is being published. But we also have unread article indicators, in which we'll actually put next to your feed a red little dot if there are some new papers in there since the last time you were there. And all of these things are just to try to help you stay up to date with all of the research needs that you might have. Just to tell you a little bit about our audience. So we have about 1.6 million users. This is about a few weeks old. We're about 1.7 million users at the moment. We have an App Store rating of about 4.5 stars, about 7,000 ratings. I told you we have about 60,000 journals. We have about 500,000 shares. But the metrics that are actually kind of interesting are these three at the bottom here, which is that we make about 4 million content impressions every week. So this is people on the feed browsing, looking at these articles. And from 5% of these articles, people will actually click on that article to see the full abstract view, right? So we have some more information, we'll display all the information to you. And from there, about 33% of people actually click onto the published web page to the PDF to read the full text of that paper. Now, our audience is all over the world. It wouldn't be surprised that we have quite a big presence in China and India and the US, but we also have a very big presence here in Europe, especially in the UK, probably because that's where we started. But you can see that we're really spread all over. The seniority levels change as well. About a quarter of our audience is PhD. You can see that postgraduates account for about a quarter, but we also have loads of medical doctors, postdoctoral researchers, professors, and so on the app. Now, to go into the citation management part, I kept this slide quite simple. But what I would actually like to get to is that I look at citation in two different ways. Right? First of all, I find it very important to know who is citing me. But secondly, it's also very important to know who you are citing, right? So where a researcher can really, really help you is to find the most relevant and the most recent research on something that you're writing. So if you're writing a review article or a report for school or whatever you're writing, for which you need citations, you just want to be sure that you have the latest citations in there as well. You don't want to miss any important research that you should have been citing. And that is really where researcher comes in quite strong. But of course, it's also interesting to know who has been citing you. From all the papers that I've tried to stay up to date with, one of the most interesting things for me was always seeing who was citing my own work. So in researcher, we have integrated with ORCID. And what that means is that if you have claimed some of your papers on ORCID, you can sync that with your researcher account, and you can also see those papers inside the app. And we will make sure that we'll ping over your DOIs for your papers every day to cross-reference, just to see if you have any new citations coming up. So it's a very nice and nifty way to stay up with your citation count. What we're developing on right now is that we also want to make sure that we can show you which papers these actually are. So if you actually click on the paper, you can actually see which are the citations, you can see who's been writing about your paper, and so forth. But a second thing that I want to get into is the difference between direct impact and long-term impact. So what you could have seen from the talk just before is that citations are a very slow metric, right? It usually takes months before anybody starts citing your paper, and it could take many, many years for these citations to go up. And even though this is, of course, a very interesting and very important metric, it really tells you how well your work has been received by the community. It doesn't actually tell you about something about the impact of your paper right now, right? So if you publish a paper tomorrow, you don't know who's reading it, you don't know who's looking at it, where it's being shared, and all of these sort of things. And this is where old metric actually came about. They're like, okay, let's look at where your paper is being shared, which social media and news outlets are talking about this. But there's also a very interesting information that research can give you, is because we have a unique platform where academics actually go to read literature. It would be very interesting for you to know who on research is reading your work. So right now we do have a view count, so we can tell you, okay, you can see that your paper has been written by been read by 500 people or by 300 people. But we're working on some tools here where you can actually see which people these are, what is their seniority, where are they from, what other papers are they interested in, just to give you a full impression about who is actually reading your work. And you can imagine that this number actually goes up right after you publish something. So in the first weeks of your publication coming out, that's when you really see the views going up. Now, for the last bit of my slide, I just want to point your attention to two tools that we've been developing that might be interesting for some of the audience out here. One of them is the Paper Finder. The Paper Finder is a free Chrome extension, so you can just download it for free right now if you want to. And what it is a little extension that comes into your Chrome bar, which is connected to our database. And what you can do in there is you can paste a piece of text in there, an abstract or a news item or any text that you have. You can click on search, and what it will do is it will use some data science to compare that piece of text to all the abstracts and titles in our database, and we will return to you similar work. So work that is semantically very similar to this. So you can actually see, like, oh, I have this paper. Let's see which papers are similar to this right there from your browser. Another tool is a journal finder, which is if you have been, if you're writing a paper, you've written a paper, you want to publish somewhere, but you're not quite sure where. What you can do is you can paste, you can go to the website of Journal Finder, which you can find on the researcher website. You can paste your abstract in the box over there and press Find Journals. And what that will do, it's very similar to the Paper Finder, where it will find similar papers to what you've just published, or what you've posted into the to the search bar, and it will then aggregate in which journals it has been published. So you can actually find the most relevant journals that have been talking about your work in the past. So you can see for the piece of text I posted in here, Jackson and Unwanted to chemistry journals were the most relevant places where the work might be published. Now, with that, I think my time is just about up. So I just have this slide over here that if anybody has any questions, feel free to pop them into the questions bar, or you can actually contact us via the email address there as well. So with that, I would like to thank you all for your attention and hand back over to Inago.
Thank you, Dr. Sanoudou and Dr. Cremers, for an enlightening session. Our attendees have indeed gained a lot of critical information for this session. Thank you.